Chapter 2, verse 1. When the hour had ended, God ascended the throne again. The marshals raised signals for order, and the archangels stood in a crescent formation in front of the throne. Etisiai sat at God's feet, her radiance glowing through the white and yellow drapery she wore, displaying the purity, wisdom, and love that only the gods had witnessed before. Verse 2. God said, "In thy name, O Jehovah, I now establish the session of thy kingdom in the lower heaven. As long as humanity brings forth heirs, this kingdom shall glorify thee. Let the lords approach the throne." Verse 3. The Essenors sang as the marshals and escorts brought the lords before the throne. Once in order, the music ceased, and God spoke. Verse 4. There are 5 great divisions of the earth, and I have appointed you as the 5 lords of those divisions in Jehovah's name. According to the inhabitants and your rank before heaven, I have placed you. Once seated in your kingdoms, you shall each have 12 messengers to serve between you and me. Choose your messengers now, so they may be confirmed before the resurrection of the archangels. Verse 5. The lords chose their messengers, who were confirmed in Jehovah's name. The swift messengers, traveling between the upper heavens, recorded their names and locations. Then God said to them, verse 6, "You have been chosen according to your talents, and based on your excellence, you will be promoted to greater tasks. May Jehovah's wisdom, love, and power be with you all. Amen." Verse 7. Now Etisiai indicated her time to depart had come. Verse 8. God descended from the judgment seat, stood in brief sorrow, then reached out and took Etisiai's hand, saying, verse 9, "Arise, O daughter of Jehovah, and go your way." Verse 10. Etisiai rose, pointed upward, and said, "My home is in the Ark of Wan. Jehovah dwells with both you and me. My swift messengers will visit you from time to time. My love will remain with you, your lords, and the harvest of your resurrection. In Jehovah's name, farewell." Verse 11. Etisiai walked to the ship of fire, but before entering, she turned for one last look at the hosts of Horeb. She then playfully tossed luminous drapery from the frames over the Essenors and quickly disappeared into the light. Verse 12. The Essenors chanted, joined by the hosts of archangels. In that same moment, the ship began to rise, surrounded by thousands of columns of fire, ascending in a spiral, turning as it rose. As it ascended, it appeared like a rising sun, and then like a distant star before disappearing beyond the vision of the angels of Horeb. Verse 13. When order was restored, the All-Light gathered around the throne, covering God and the lords. Jehovah, speaking through God, said, verse 14, "Listen, for I am also present with these lords of the hosts of heaven." Verse 15. The lords asked, "What shall we do?" And Jehovah answered, "Summon all angels to pass before God's throne, one by one, so that I may judge them. Those who dwelt on any of my corporeal worlds of the 5th of the 2nd rate shall remain in Horeb to work only with Essions, while those of the full 1st rate shall go to the kingdoms of my lords and work with corporeans." Verse 16. The marshals arranged the angels who passed in front of the throne. With his great wisdom, God saw the ranks of every man and woman. He directed those destined for atmosphere and work to turn one way, and those assigned to minister to mortals to turn another. When they had all passed, they were correctly divided according to Jehovah's command. Verse 17. God said, "Hear me, O lords. Take your workers and go to your assigned places on the earth and its waters. You shall be lords with me, for the glory of Jehovah. Whatever you do on earth, I will confirm in heaven. Whomever you deliver from the earth, I will receive in heaven. As you shape and build up mortals and deliver their spirits to my kingdom, so will I receive and reward them." Verse 18. To ensure that your kingdoms are in harmony with mine, I give you sufficient messengers. They will pass daily between us, and I have chosen them based on their proficiency and ability to travel between places. Verse 19. Keep a record in your kingdoms, which will be carried upward in the next resurrection. However, you will also keep a separate record related to your kingdom's interactions with mine. Verse 20. When mortals die and are born as spirits, receive them into your records as Essions, or newly born spirits. Provide temporary abodes for them, where they may stay, some for days, others for a year or more. Report Report their numbers and conditions to me through the messengers, and I will send ships to bring them to my kingdom. Verse 21, appoint Asaphs, whose role will be to receive the Essenes from the Ashars. Verse 22, while mortals live, the Ashars will remain with them, guarding them in the name of the Lord and of me. When a mortal dies, the Ashar will deliver the Ession to the Asaph, saying, in Jehovah's name, receive this newly born spirit. I was his guardian. For the good or evil in him, I take responsibility. The Ashar will then deliver the mortal's life record, which will be kept within your kingdom. Verse 23, the Asaph will say, in Jehovah's name, I receive this new spirit. The Asaph will then bring the Ession to a place with nurses and attendants based on the spirit's needs. Verse 24, when ships come to your kingdoms, the Asaphs will deliver all the Essions they have received, and my officer will bring them to my place in heaven. Verse 25, when God had finished instructing the lords, they replied, we will be your lords, O God, following your commandments for the glory of Jehovah our Father. Verse 26, God said, I have given each of you a great division of the earth, and each will be named after you. Verse 27, the lands were then named Waga, Pan, Asia, Thori, America, Vohu, Africa, and Dis, Europe. These names were entered into the books of heaven in Horeb by God's command in Jehovah's name. Verse 28, the record of the great serpent showed the firmament of Temyi in the third circuit of Forcum and Danha 24. Verse 29, when all was completed, the Lord sat at the foot of the throne, and the Essenors sang a hymn of praise to Jehovah, with the entire multitude joining in. Verse 30, when the hymn ended, God stood amidst a sea of light, raised both hands and said, O Jehovah, almighty and everlasting, help thy servants in founding this thy kingdom for thy glory, peace, wisdom, and power. Verse 31, he made the sign of Jehovah's name with his right hand, then came down to the foot of the throne and took the hand of Waga, saying, arise, my son, and go your way, Jehovah will bless you. Verse 32, Waga rose and stood aside. God then raised the other four lords in the same way, and they stood aside. Verse 33, the marshals passed the throne saluting, followed by the lords, Asaphs, and finally the remaining hosts. Verse 34, this marked the beginning of the first kingdom in the lower heaven and the first reign of the lords on earth.